Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting material here today, all about varicose veins and related things like hemorrhoids. That's what we're digging into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our goal really is simple. Pull out the key insights from these sources so you can get a handle on why these conditions happen and, what might be done about them. So let's get started.
Sounds great. There's a lot here. Really gets into the nitty-gritty of how our veins work and what makes them, well, go wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Quite something how many different factors can be involved.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Why do varicose veins even show up? I think a starting point in our sources is this difference between arteries and veins.
That's really fundamental. Arteries, they carry oxygenated blood away from the heart, high pressure, pumped strongly. Veins, though, they have the job of returning blood to the heart.
And the pressure is much lower there, right?
Much, much lower. Think about it. Arteries have the heart pushing right behind them. Veins, especially from your legs, they're fighting gravity and don't have that direct pump. They need help.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So blood down in the legs needs a boost to get back up. What does the body do? What are the strategies?
Well, one really critical thing is the valves inside the veins. Venous valves. Picture them like tiny one-way gates.
Okay.
Blood flows up towards the heart. The gates swing open. If gravity pulls blood back down, the gates slam shut. Stops backflow.
Like little check valves.
Exactly. Healthy veins depend on them. But here's the catch. If a vein gets stretched out, dilated, those little valve flaps might not meet properly anymore.
So they can't seal.
Right. They become leaky, and then blood starts to pool, especially if you're, say, standing still for a long time. That pressure builds up.
That makes total sense. Wider pipe, the gates don't reach across.
Yeah.
So moving around must be a big deal then.
A huge deal. That's where your muscles come into play. Every time you contract your leg muscles, walking, running, even just flexing, they squeeze the veins nearby.
Like a pump.
Precisely. A natural pump. And because of those one-way valves we just talked about, the blood only gets pushed in one direction, upwards, towards the heart.
So regular movement, exercise. That's got to be key for prevention,
It's
hasn't it?
absolutely crucial. It keeps that pump working.
Okay, so valves stop the backflow, muscles pump it up.
Yeah.
But the sources also mentioned breathing. How does that fit in?
Yeah, it's maybe more subtle, but still important. Your respiratory activity. When you take a deep breath in, inhale.
Yeah.
The pressure changes inside your chest cavity. It actually creates a sort of negative pressure, like a gentle vacuum, that helps draw blood up from your lower body towards your heart.
Wow. So even just breathing properly helps circulation.
It all contributes. Amazing how it's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Hormones. Estrogen, specifically. This sounds like another really interesting angle.
Oh, it is. Higher levels of estrogen can actually cause the vein walls themselves to relax, to become a bit more stretchy or dilated.
Okay.
This is why you often see varicose veins appearing or getting worse during times of major hormonal shifts. Think pregnancy or menopause.
Right, those connections make sense. So managing hormone balance, especially too much estrogen, seems like a strategy.
Definitely a key part of prevention and management for many people.
And it's not just about pregnancy or menopause, is it? The notes mention something called aromatase and body fat.
Correct. Aromatase is an enzyme, and it's found primarily in body fat. Its job, it converts other hormones into estrogen.
Ah, I see.
So if someone has a higher percentage of body fat, they naturally have more aromatase activity.
Meaning they produce more estrogen.
Exactly, both men and women. So higher body fat can lead to higher estrogen levels overall, contributing to that vein dilation we were talking about.
So practically speaking then, keeping body fat in a healthy range could actually help lower estrogen and support vein health.
That's the implication, yes. Reducing excess body fat can help rebalance those hormones. Another reason why lifestyle plays such a big role.
It really highlights the interconnectedness again. Okay, let's move on to inflammation. The sources point to this as another factor, and it seems like it works in a couple of ways.
Yes, inflammation is a really critical piece of the puzzle. It can contribute in, broadly, two ways. First, think about localized inflammation.
Like from an injury, maybe?
Could be. Or just inflammation in tissues right next to a vein. That swelling can physically compress the vein, squeeze it shut partially.
Right.
And remember, veins are low-pressure systems compared to arteries. They're more easily squashed. So this compression, this obstruction, causes blood to back up and pool before the squeezed point.
And that pooling increases pressure on the vein wall there.
Precisely. Over time, that sustained pressure can weaken the vein wall, stretch it out, potentially leading to permanent dilation of varicose vein.
Wow. So inflammation nearby can indirectly cause vein issues. That's not something I'd immediately connect.
It's easy to overlook, but then there's the second way. More systemic inflammation, often linked to the digestive system.
Digestive inflammation, how does that affect veins, say, in the legs?
Well, think about increased inflammation in your gut, your abdomen. This can actually increase the overall pressure inside your abdominal cavity.
Okay, higher pressure in the whole belly area.
Right, and that increased pressure can then put strain on veins elsewhere. The sources mention varicocele as a potential example.
Varicocele. Those are the varicose veins in the scrotum, right?
Yes. And the idea is that increased abdominal pressure, maybe from digestive issues, could potentially compress the veins, draining blood away from the testicles up towards the kidneys.
Leading to pooling and distension down there.
Exactly. It illustrates the principal pressure in one area affecting drainage from another. So the big takeaway here is that reducing overall inflammation, whether it's localized or systemic, is really important for vascular health generally.
It really seems like everything ties together. Okay, let's switch focus now to what people might be able to do, supplement-wise, to support their veins. What stands out from the material?
Well, what's interesting is the variety of approaches. Some supplements seem to address the structure, others the blood flow itself. Collagen, for instance.
Collagen for skin, usually think of that. How does it help veins?
It's crucial for the elasticity of the vein walls. Think of it like the springiness. Healthy veins need to expand and contract a bit with blood flow changes. If they lose that elasticity,
They get floppy?
sort of, yeah, they can't snap back as well, making them more prone to permanent dilation under pressure. So good collagen status helps maintain that structural integrity.
Makes sense. Keeping the pipe strong and flexible. What about vitamin E?
Vitamin E is mentioned for its potential anticoagulant effects, meaning it might help make the blood a little less thick, a bit more slippery.
Improving viscosity.
Exactly. Better blood flow, less sluggishness, which could help prevent the conditions that lead to varicose veins.
And then there was a mention of a kidney cleanse. That sounds a bit different.
Yes, the sources suggest a kidney cleanse might help regulate venous blood flow somehow. They do mention instructions are elsewhere, like in another video, perhaps.
Okay, so maybe something to look into further, but maybe needs more context.
Right. And I'd add, for things like kidney or liver cleanses, it's always wise to chat with a healthcare professional first, considering your own health situation.
Good point, definitely. Okay, now, for some specific herbs often linked to veins, horse chestnut seems prominent.
Yes, horse chestnut comes up frequently. It's presented in the material as potentially one of the most effective supplements for established varicose veins and also for hemorrhoids.
Any idea on dosage?
The typical dosage mentioned is up to about 500 milligrams. It's often cited for helping with vein tone and integrity.
And it might work even better with something called biorutin, or Sophora japonica.
That's the suggestion, yes. Biorutin, which comes from Sophora japonica, is mentioned as a traditional herb used in Chinese medicine that seems to work well alongside horse chestnut for these kinds of venous issues, synergistically.
Got it. The notes also list a few others: butcher's broom, dandelion, cayenne pepper, but maybe with less enthusiasm.
Yeah, the experience shared in the sources seems to be that while those might have some benefit for some people, they perhaps aren't as consistently effective as the horse chestnut and biorutin combination, especially if used long-term.
Okay, good to know. Now let's narrow the focus specifically onto hemorrhoids for a moment. It sounds like dealing with those might be a bit more complex than leg veins.
That's a key distinction made in the sources, yes. While the underlying issue involves veins, managing hemorrhoids often brings in other factors more strongly.
Like what?
Primarily, dietary changes. Increasing fiber intake is highlighted as really crucial, and also looking at gut flora, the balance of bacteria in your digestive system.
To ease bowel movements, presumably? Reduce straining?
Exactly. That's often the first and most important step. Making bowel movements easier reduces that direct pressure on the hemorrhoidal veins.
There's also mention of a liver cleanse potentially being helpful here, too.
Yes, it's suggested as something that might offer support for hemorrhoids. But, and this is an important but, there's a warning. For people who already have varicose veins elsewhere or just a tendency towards them, doing a liver cleanse might actually make hemorrhoid symptoms temporarily worse right after the cleanse.
Oh, wow. That's really important to flag. So it could backfire initially for some people?
Potentially, yes. So the advice seems to lean towards, if hemorrhoids are the main concern, start with the diet. Start with fiber, focus on smooth bowel movements first.
Got it. Diet and fiber first for hemorrhoids. Be cautious with cleanses if you have other vein issues.
That seems to be the prudent approach suggested.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, We've covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive, really trying to understand how varicose veins form, why they happen,
Yeah, we looked at the mechanics, the valves, the muscle pump, even breathing.
and then the influences like hormones, especially estrogen, and how body fat ties into that,
Uh-huh.
plus the role of inflammation, both nearby and systemically from digestion.
Right. And then we touched on potential support through lifestyle, like movement and targeted supplements, collagen, vitamin E, and especially things like horse chestnut and biorutin.
And the specific considerations for hemorrhoids, focusing on diet first.
Absolutely. It paints a picture of how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? Understanding these different pieces really empowers you to think about your own vascular health more effectively.
Definitely. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Just consider how all these different body systems, your circulation, your hormones, your digestion, even how you breathe, are constantly talking to each other. It makes you wonder what other connections, maybe seemingly unrelated things in your health or lifestyle, might actually be influencing your overall well-being in ways you haven't considered. Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.